and the police had it in June.
Okay. And
So June, so well in advance of the fixture being...
Since the police as well?
Police as well, yes.
Yeah. What was the reaction?
The police attempted to make... This isn't the West Midlands Police, it's the National Policing Unit. They attempted to get a meeting, which didn't happen, but that's not because they didn't want it to happen. It's because holidays overlapped. DCMS asked for a meeting. I had a meeting, and I alerted them to what I thought in this case, theoretical problems would be, and they said they would convene a meeting in order to discuss my report, but I heard no more.
And Home Office?
Nothing.
And Birmingham City Council, nothing
Birmingham
later
City
on?
Council, nothing.
Okay. Turning to the intelligence used by a quote cited by the West Midlands Police. Now, you know, we know from history from the Iraq War, we know intelligence is sometimes sort of one-word oxymoron, but what's your view of the intelligence used by them or cited by them?
Well, it's inaccurate. It conflates different things. If I can give an example, the report says on match day, and I'm now jumping, but I'm quoting from it, inflammatory actions included tearing down Palestinian flags. That didn't happen on match day. And the day before match day, it was one flag. I actually did a full scan, spending several hours of Amsterdam, of Rotterdam and Utrecht each time, and each day I was there to see how many Palestinian flags there were. And I was surprised how few. And of course, they weren't, the few that I saw weren't hanging outside of buildings, they were in windows. So there is no evidence of more than one flag, and I think pulling down a flag is highly inflammatory and will get a bad reaction. So I'm not minimising the impact of pulling a flag down, but there was one flag pulled down on the Rocken. There weren't flags, and it didn't happen on the Thursday, the match day, it happened on the Wednesday. But this says on match day. That is inaccurate. There is no evidential base of that whatsoever. It says they were running street battles between the two groups throughout the day. That didn't happen. The battles, so-called, were after the fixture ended, after 11:30. Indeed, the Amsterdam police during the day were very successful in keeping different groups. The two groups they particularly identified, there was a what I'd call political protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, anti-Israel protesters, and there were the Maccabi fans. They were very successful in keeping them separate. So that didn't happen on the day. The several attacks on taxi drivers. There were incidents again on the Roken. It's the same incident. It's about 45 minutes after the flag was pulled down. It's the night before. And again, that's a problem incident. If initially a taxi driver was attacked, I've seen the footage of it, I was showing it in Amsterdam, and then others got involved. It quickly dissipated, but nevertheless, that's rightly identified as a problem. But
Are you aware of the letter Mike O'Hara has sent the committee justifying the police's role in this?
No, I've not been sent that.
He speaks about 500 and 600 Maccabi fans deliberately targeting Muslim communities. What do you say to that?
I've got all the reports from Amsterdam, the Dutch reports. That's conflating two things. That what happened, and it's in their reports, in fact I can cite it from their reports, after the fixture, this is on the Thursday, the fans arrive at 11:30 p.m. in the town centre. Sorry, it's the night before, the Wednesday night. The fans are on the Roken, a flag is pulled down, the police identify that's a group of around 50 fans, who then dissipate. One police report suggests it ends up being around 70, and there's an altercation with taxi drivers. I've seen the footage, there certainly was an altercation. It involved a smaller number, but the maximum number there was 50 to 70. 400 Israeli fans were in a casino. The police got called because there was a group waiting for them outside the casino at about 2:30, waiting to ambush them. So the police came and very efficiently again stopped any major confrontation. So the 400 to 500 figure comes from adding the 400 to that smaller group. Now, the smaller group's still a problem for the police, obviously, and 50 people is a sizable group of in football terms, but it is not 500, and that's what worries me about the report, because they've been conflated, and that happens repeatedly in this report.
Sorry.
So, I mean, I just think what you're trying to say, quite clearly, is that the facts have slightly changed to fit the decision.
Correct.
That would be a summary of what's gone on here. Yeah.
And like the reference to 5,000 officers, is that conceivable? It says 5,000 officers were deployed over a number of days. Does that?
I spoke with the chief of police, Mr. Holler. I met the mayor. I met many other people there. It wasn't 5,000. The figure I've seen cited in their reports is 1,200.
Might that be 1,200 times 4, possibly? 1,200 a day, or was it 1,200
on any one day?
Yeah.
On match day, 1,200.
Yeah. So possibly, if you multiplied it by 4, you might get to 5,000 if you were.
You could, but that might give a different impression. Yes, you could. I see how your logic.
What other factors, apart from the Amsterdam intelligence, do you think influenced the West Midlands Police?
I think the West Midlands Police wanted a solution to a problem, because there was a problem. My report says there would be a problem. So there was a problem. And I don't know whether they attempted to get an earlier kick-off or not. I raised that with them. I don't know if that was attempted and that was ruled out. The solution of using coaches clearly wasn't considered. I mean, I went to the extent of even identifying a potential venue for coaches to assemble in London, which was discreet and very straightforward. A coach operation would have been very, very simple from my football experience. I'm simply surprised at the fact that a football match at West Ham is put at the beginning of the report. To me, it kind of sums up there was a problem and the problem was solved, but it then had to be got through a committee.
To be absolutely clear, are you telling the committee that the safety of Maccabi fans could have been guaranteed?
I'm absolutely certain the safety of Maccabi fans could have been guaranteed if they were taken, and that was my advice to Maccabi Tel Aviv. I said, in my view, you should not have your fans staying in Birmingham. You should not fly directly into Birmingham. You should get your fans to stay in London, and we should bus them from London, and you should accept a low number of tickets. As they'd told me that they didn't anticipate their ultra fans coming, I thought that was very straightforward. But even with their ultra fans coming, fully uniformed in their shirts, etc., it's very straightforward. I give one example. If you have people assemble in London to get their ticket, then that's where they can be searched. So you have more time to search for flares. So you can also deal with the flares issue. And I thought that was very straightforward. And I think going forward, I'd be surprised if the West Midlands Police don't agree that that would be quite a sensible scenario going forward to do, should there be such a fixture again in their jurisdiction.
Just so I can summarise your recommendations, you think the kick-off times need to be looked at so that you don't have the risk of fans staying overnight in a city that it might not be safe. You would use coaches and named tickets, presumably with passports, etc., required to be shown to demonstrate you are who you say you are. You would recommend more checking for flares on going in, which I mean, it does still astonish me that I see flares at football matches. They've been illegal at football matches for years and years and years, and yet somehow the checking that gets done doesn't seem to pick up flares. I don't know where fans secrete them, but they are always there. You think there should be a fan representative on safety advisory groups,
Of when there's football being discussed.
Yeah, and are there any other recommendations that you would make?
Yes, I would. I think it would be very helpful if government was to give a little bit of resource to the Changing the Chance project, which is precisely aimed at racist chants across Europe. Anne Frank House in Amsterdam has been in the lead in it. The German clubs have been very involved. I happen to have the German clubs coming over tomorrow, 20 of them, to meet their English counterparts on racism in football, anti-Semitism in football, which is of course part of racism, and misogyny and sexism in football. And we can learn a lot from Germany. I've suggested that there could perhaps be a partnership, and government might want to ratify between Germany, German football and English football, looking at these issues, because in German football they've been very effective at changing the chance. They've been very effective at dealing with, I think probably the right word, sexist and some horrific stuff. Very, very effective. They've been very effective at dealing with anti-Semitism, and I think that exchange would be very, very useful. So if your committee is powerful enough to prompt government, I think that would also be ongoing very helpful. Otherwise we'll be back here again. Statistically, an Israeli team will play a British team in a UEFA fixture. That will happen. The statistical likelihood is high that will happen. Well, a lot of the problems can be avoided by, and I'm much keener to see, my hope of your committee is that we solve the next problem rather than spend all our time on the last problem. That's what I attempted to do by going to Amsterdam and meeting everyone. I wasn't successful, I'm sorry about that, but I was attempting to see what to me was obviously going to be a problem at some stage that I think would have been relatively straightforward to solve. Now, if your objective is no Israeli club playing, which is a political objective, of course it doesn't do that. In fact, in many ways, it counters that because it makes it easier for an Israeli club to play. But that's a separate political issue, which you as politicians can have a view and vote how you want in Parliament on.
Do you think the Home Office is sufficiently engaged on this? I mean, I'm acutely aware as someone who's served in both the DCMS and the Home Office that this responsibility sort of falls between the two departments. I'm struck by you saying that there was no response from the Home Office to your report.
Well, I was told there would be a meeting between DCMS and the Home Office. If there was, I'm not aware of it. I think there should have been if there wasn't. And it's the second time that football policing has hit into Parliament. There's obviously the Casey review, which I think is on a different kind of scale of issue. I'm not sure the two are directly comparable. But people go to football to enjoy themselves, to relax, to avoid, I'll include myself in this, to avoid us politicians and all of that. They go to football, to have a good time. And, what we attempt to do rightly is, if they do so, to make sure that they're not abusing players or other fans or anybody else in any way, including not least in racism. And generally we've made big improvements in this country on that. Well, we should continue doing so. And I think some of the lessons learning from this will help to do so, including involving the Jewish community.
Thank you. We're going on to final questions around the impact on community relations. I want to bring Robbie Moore in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just sticking, Lord Mann, on impact on community relations. In your view, was the decision to exclude Maccabi Tel Aviv fans and the subsequent fallout that has happened increased the risk of anti-Semitism in the Jewish community of Birmingham?
The Jewish community of Birmingham feels that. Whether it actually does or doesn't, in a sense, perception is reality. And by the way, that would go for the Muslim community in Birmingham, feeling this is going to be a problem, because there were people telling them it was going to be a problem. Not many actually protested. We were told it'd be 300,000, and it was a very tiny number. I'm not surprised about that. But people's perception is their reality, their fears are their fears. And there are, if I could just quote Game Over Israel, which is an organisation trying to stop Israel playing in any sport. their director, Ashish Prasad, said the following. Game Over Israel assisted West Midlands Police before issuing a ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from attending a UEFA European League game versus Aston Villa earlier this month by providing reports and evidence from lawyers on the Israeli team's fans' conduct. Now, I don't know if that's true. My suspicion would be, as happened in Amsterdam, there's people trying to take credit. What happened in Amsterdam was you had the suggestion it was a pogrom, which is nonsense. There were 5 Israeli hospitalised but not kept in overnight. There were 30 to 40 with minor injuries. Now, that's bad. That is not a pogrom. But there are also people saying, this is a great victory, we've beaten the Israelis, well done everyone. Also untrue. So you have people trying to use this. And, you know, I don't know if this Game Over Israel did actually send stuff and have influence, I would hope not. But if they did, that has huge implications for community relations.
So whether it's perception or reality, in terms of the fallout, how would you expect the government to respond to that?
By ensuring that the overwhelming majority in all communities who would like football to go ahead without any hassle and people who are to go to it are heard. I didn't hear a single Aston Villa fan saying, we don't want the we welcome a competitive advantage of not having some away fans cheering on their team, which actually it gave them. Because that's not good sport, that's not how football works. And I think quite the opposite. What I was hearing from Aston Villa fans was, we don't think this is good, why is this happening? And community relations are damaged if people can't go about their everyday life without hassle. Well, people should be able to go to football without hassle. If I'm Jewish or any other ethnicity, I should be able to go to a football match without any hassle in this country.
Thank you very much, Lord Mann, for your extensive and expansive responses to our questions. It's been very helpful for us in setting the scene for our next 2 panels, where we will go to law enforcement and PCC, and then we'll have the Minister. Very, very grateful for you coming today, but I will bring this part of the session to a close and give everyone a slight break between this and the next panel. Order.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.